Hello, my name's Colin Riddington and this is the latest in my series of videos called Isle of Dogs on Access, and the topic of today's video is building a progress bar in Access. And you can find a related article on my website at https://isleofdogs.co.uk/progress-bar. Now, progress bars are used in Access to show the progress of a lengthy procedure, typically containing many separate steps, and they give the user an indication that something is actually going on, rather than waiting and wondering if the program has frozen. It also helps users know the approximate time a task will take to complete. Of course, because of the additional code required, it will slightly increase the time needed to complete tasks, but usually it's a fairly small increase. The progress bar I'm going to show you works in both 32-bit and 64-bit Access. There's no APIs needed, no ActiveX controls, and you can show the percentage or number of steps completed. Various different types of progress bar are available. Solid bars are the typical ones, but you can also use a suitable image or a gradient fill. For example, I've got an image of a flag here which is being used to indicate the progress. I've also got the percentage completed and the number of steps as a separate label below there. Let's show you the demonstration application where I've got a number of different progress bars. Now, in this example, I've got 4 different types of progress bar. The first one, form 1 here, is a solid green progress bar, and the progress is based on a series of events. Let's open that. And as each event is completed, the progress bar will move across the screen in the space below here. I've set it as default number of steps as 20, and if I start this now, you can see as it moves across at an irregular interval, but in each stage we've got 20 steps, so each one is 5%, so it'll increase by 5% each time. And as you can see, each step takes a different amount of time to complete, which is a fairly typical situation that you might get. I can stop that if I want to, and it will go back to here. But if I start this again this time, I'll just reduce the number of steps to 12, and it will change the percentage now to about 1/12 of 100%. As you can see here, about 9% each time. Okay, now I've done this, I've cheated to do this. I've actually got a loop in my code here, and that loop, then I've added a delay after each step to actually create that unequal progress as shown there. In a typical application you would do it in a different way, but if I just show you the code for that particular form. Right, so when we click the start button, then it actually then sets the table back to my initial position there. You wouldn't need to do this in a real application, this is just for demonstration. It changes the caption of the start button to stop. It then gets the number of steps to be run. I did that by using the text box on the main form there, which I just set to 12 just now, and it also sets up the progress bar, first of 3 stages. It then starts running the number of steps here. Now I've done this, as I say, on a loop. It makes the label text, that step 1 of 12, which is the magenta writing here, okay, visible. It then does an update query, and it then tells it to wait a certain amount of time to introduce that artificial length there, and that changes each time. And I've done this where I've got 2 different queries running on alternate numbers. So the first step does this, the third step does that, second, fourth, and so on. But in a real application you would actually have different queries each time. After each step is done, it updates the progress bar and it changes the label caption to be step 1 of 10 or whatever. It then goes back, loops again, and carries on until it's completed. Let's just show you that once more. Move the code out of the way, change this now to 6 so we can actually speed this up. Done. Okay, now let's go to a different example. And this time I'm going to use a solid progress bar. This time it's going to be coloured magenta, but this time the progress is based on a form timer event. I've got 600 steps in this, and in each one then it will then send this across here by 1/600th of the total width here. Let's show you this. And because it's working on a timer event, this time it's absolutely smooth in terms of the time for each event there. Now this is less often used, but if you knew exactly the amount of time for a single step perhaps to be run, where you've got a very slow query and you knew it was going to take, let's say, 2.5 minutes, then you could actually set your progress bar on a timer event instead, as I'm doing here. Let's just change that. Let's reduce the number of steps here to 30, and this time you'll see it be much less smooth, much more obvious steps going on here, and much faster obviously. Similar sort of code in this one here. This time then when we click the start button, it changes to stop as before, checks the number of steps, sets the timer interval at 0.1 second and sets up the progress bar. The timer event then, after each 100th of a second as the timer event runs, it then updates the progress bar, sends it across by that interval there, changes the label text and carries on until it reaches the number of steps required. In default 600, and when it reaches the number it then hides the progress bar, stops the timer and sets everything back to where it was before. And if we just go back to this again, just show you that again, as was explained just now. Let's go to the third one. Now the third one is again a timer event, just to make life simple. Okay, this time though I'm using an image fill. So if we go to here, and it's the one I showed you on the first slide here, it's got the German flag, and as it moves across, the German flag increases its width accordingly. No difference before, the code is identical, it's just so instead of using a solid bar I'm using an image. And if we go to the fourth one here, we can also do it with a gradient fill, just finding suitable images. And here we've got a multicoloured bar that increases in width, and as you can see each part of that increases in width in exactly the same way, and again same code as on the second form I showed you. Let's go to design view, and in design view if we go to the images, the image gallery, you can see I've got the two images that I've used. The gradient fill, that's what it looks like, the real image there, it's just stretched out here, and that was the flag I used. And as I said, you can use any image you like, and I've just chosen to put two in the image gallery here. Okay, now that's just about it in terms of the code here, but if I just show you then each of these progress bars, whether it's a gradient fill or an image fill or a solid bar there, each of them is made up of 3 parts, and the 3 parts are as follows. The top part here, progress caption, that's the bit that has the percentage mark on it. Let's just take that out secondly. The next bit below that is a rectangular control containing an image in this case, and that is the bit that increases the width. Notice it's the same size as the previous item, the label there. Let's take that off. And the third one here at the bottom, the progress bottom then, okay, is an invisible control, and that one there is used to indicate what should happen with the code with the width of the progress bar each time. And let's just now close that form without saving it, and let's just show you those components again here. So we've got at the bottom a rectangle which is not filled, just used to indicate the width. The top one, this is the part that actually will grow on each step, and then optionally we've got a percentage indicator, and again optionally and in a different place then we've got some text that might say step 1 of 10 or whatever. Now the progress bar code itself, there are 3 parts. We've got some definitions here, the maximum length, the incremental size of each change, some numbers, and also the form as access form. So SetupProgressBar, this is the thing that makes the progress bar actually in the first place defined to the number of steps we want. So we reset the step count, we have a default value just in case the developer has forgotten to put one in. Default is going to be made 50 if it's not already set somewhere else in the form. We then set the maximum length as the width of the bottom progress rectangle, box progress bottom. The increment then is the width of that divided by the number of steps we're going to do. So if there are 50 steps, it's 1/50th of the total width. So that's the amount that the progress bar will grow each time. We set the initial stage of the top one as width as 0, the caption to 0%, we make certain things visible, and we change the color if we want to do so and paint it. After each step then, the progress bar is updated, the number is increased by 1, if it's not at its maximum width already, then it increases by the incremental size from what it was before. So initially the width was 0, so increased by that increment 1/50th or whatever of the total width. And the caption is also calculated in the same way, 100 times the number, the width of the progress bar currently divided by the actual size it's going to be when it's maximized. And it's an extra thing I've got on here. I change the color once we get the progress bar gone past where the number display is, just so you can see it more clearly, but you don't have to do that. At the end, you then change the progress bar so it's hidden, so you hide progress bar me being the form it's on. You set the box at the bottom visible equals false. You set the top box visible equals false, and you set the label visible equals false, and you reset everything to 0. And that is basically it. The only thing I actually added in this was, in my first one, I put in some code to cause a delay, and that's a fairly simple code that you can add if you want to, if you need to, for your own particular purposes. Okay, so let's now come out of this program here and go back to the PowerPoint and then give you some example of real event code. So if you're running your progress bar on a series of events, then you might have, let's say, 5 steps. So you set the value of the iCount variable to 5, and you set up the progress bar, SetupProgressBar me, because you're doing this on the form where it's actually going to be run. You then run your first step, e.g. an update query, and you update the progress bar, and you allow the screen to update by doing do events or some other similar code that just creates a very slight pause. Then you run step 2, maybe an append query, update the progress bar again. Step 3, whatever it is there. Step 4, similarly. Step 5, similarly. After each one is run, you've updated the progress bar. And once the progress is completed, you've done your 5th step, then you hide the progress bar and you hide the label text if you're using that, and reset everything back to 0 again, or the start position. Let's go on to the example of timer code. Then I showed you this earlier, but if a timer code, then you set the button at the start, button to change the caption to stop, you get the number of steps, you set the timer interval, and you set up the progress bar. The timer event then runs, and after each timer interval it then updates the progress bar until it reaches the number of steps, and then you hide the progress bar again. Okay, that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and if you found it useful, please add a like and leave a comment. Suggest some topics for future videos in this series, and do subscribe. You'll be notified whenever new videos are uploaded. Thanks again. See you soon.